All right, so welcome back to the Multifamily Live Podcast. I am Jason Yarusi. Today, together with my beautiful wife, Pili Yarusi, here with us today in the office, today doing the live Multifamily Live. So yes, again, thank you so much for all the great feedback we have. Thank you to each and every one of you for all the great comments, all the great feedback, your support over the years of doing this. Of course, if you like what you hear, go down there, make sure you hit that follow button, make sure you are in the know for what's coming up for future episodes. But today we just wanted to get together and talk because there's not so many times that Pili and I get to do this together. Not so many times that we get to just sit down and just talk about everything that happens in business and life. And notably, it's so dynamic, right? We're hearing so many things, so many pressures, so many things that are always on us, that are always pushing against us, are always making things hard, that are always something that could affect us today, in the future. If you listen to the news today versus yesterday, it's constantly trying to push you into fear. And one of the best lessons that constantly comes up is just being patient, taking a deep breath, and looking at really, you can call it the horizon, but the long-term approach. And where I started to really think about this is that upcoming, we're going to be speaking at Middle Tennessee State University for one of the students that asked us to speak over there. And, you know, here they are, kids coming out of college, and they're just trying to figure it out, right? So the question is, how do we figure it out? And you had a pretty awesome thing, but what was your response?
Sometimes you just have to let it work itself out. I mean, I remember coming out of college thinking that I was going to do theater for the rest of my life. I had moved to New York City. I had done a student exchange program and I was going to do theater. Of course, I was also in the restaurant industry. So I was doing all these things, going to school, thinking that I didn't have enough time, but not realizing that I had all the time in the world to just try things and to put my whole heart into them. I think that's what one of the things I'm going to key in on when we talk to these college students is that pick something, put your heart into it. And if it doesn't work out, pivot. You have the time, you have the knowledge, you have the know-how. Once you're in your late teens, early 20s, you have this lifetime of knowledge that you can go into, but you have to realize that you have this entire lifetime ahead of you to learn more, to do more, and not to get yourself stuck into one thing.
They say life is short, and then I heard something that counteracted that today, that, well, what do you know that's longer, right? What do you know that's longer than your life? And if you think about that in all parts, yes, there's history, there's other parts, but you weren't there, you weren't experienced to it. So all you are experienced to is your life. And it's longer than you think. And when we think about everything, I can remember being 23 and thinking, I'm too old to start something today. And if I had just started then, think about where I would have been now. And when I think about something now, I don't have that age restriction that's constantly limiting me to saying to start, because honestly, the thought is more, if I don't do this now, am I going to have another chance in my life to do it? Right? There's only a certain point that it's like, well, if I don't go try this activity, it would, like, my body in 20 years is going to be ready to do this again, right? Even with kids, like if I don't get up to do this now, like it's not like 20 years from now, they're like, hey, you want to do this thing again with me? Well, no, they're in their 20s, they're on their own life doing something else. Our life is in phases, and the phase that you are in right now is where you are. And instead of regretting it, just saying, okay, here's where I am. Here is where I am right now. Here is the place, the position, that just the time in life that it is. And if you don't like it, do something to change it. So many times we're waiting for someone to come out there to just say to us, well, do this. Well, okay, sure, maybe that shows up, but why should someone do that for you? Why are we waiting for somebody else to show up for you?
And then the inverse of that is people that are telling you that you can't. So as a child, I wanted to do all of it. I wanted to be a doctor, a veterinarian, an artist, a writer. I don't even remember what else, all these things that I wanted to do. But whoever it was, whatever I was doing, people told me I couldn't do all these things. And then it became my own thing. I mean, how many times have you throughout your life started something, but then thought to yourself, no, I have to do this other thing because this other thing will make me successful, not like really honing in. I really like, for instance, in my 20s, I really like doing yoga, but thinking about it, I was like, well, yoga, it's kind of like art. And I was told that art, you can't make a living out of it. Whereas if I had really just dug in my heels and done yoga or done art, where would I be now? Like sometimes, and it just really depends on your life. It really depends on where you want to take it. Sometimes it's either know when to let go, when you have the reasoning to let go and pivot and take those next steps of growth, or when you have to kind of dig your heels in and say, okay, I want to get into business. Do you really want to, or is that the world telling you that you should be an entrepreneur? Because not everybody should be. But if this is something you really want to do, then there's going to be a point, and this happens to Jason and I all the time. There's going to become a point where it gets really hard. And then you jump over that point, and then you go, and it gets even harder. There's these kind of breaking points where the problems that you have just get, quote, worse, because you're leveling up. And as you level up, that level has a different set of problems.
Well, so I won't say worse, but I'm going to talk to 2 points. If there's one thing you can definitely do in your life, it's learn to figure out your advice barometer. And what I mean by that is that just because someone gives you advice does not mean you should listen to it, especially if they give you advice and they've never done it themselves, right? If they're talking to you about why you shouldn't start a business and the person's worked at the same company for 25 years, how can you honestly take that advice? Because they've never been out on that ledge. They've never had that urge because they've wanted that protective layer. And honestly, if they've never gone after to no athletic accomplishments and they say, you shouldn't do that because what if you don't succeed? Like, don't listen to them. Go find someone that you can truly value their response. And ideally, the biggest thing you could do is solve bigger problems. You want to see how can I be successful? Find a bigger problem to solve. And so, yes, the problems, when you call them worse, but I want to call them worse, they just get bigger because as you go through life, there's more things to tackle. And if you are going to constantly stay in your comfort zone, where every time your skin gets nicked and it hurts, well, then you're never going to get out of that fear zone. Like our kids, yes, we want to take care of them all the time, but I'm not going to call it torture, but I push them to the point like, hey, can you open this for me? No, I can't. Can you take off my seatbelt? No, you try, you figure it out. Because honestly, if they are constantly waiting for someone to show up, then all of a sudden they get out of college in real life, they move somewhere else, and then someone doesn't say, great job for, putting your clothes away. And then everything's upsetting to them because the easy things have been so easy and the hard things have been easy to them that life just seems to be easy until it's not.
And the thing is, and if you're hearing scratching, that's not one of our children trying to get in. It's actually our puppy.
Well, it is one of our children. It's one of our bulldog children, in panic mode right now.
To what you were saying though, it's not torture to let your child figure it out. I think so much we want to coddle, we want to protect, we want to help, but having your children, having you yourself go through the rhythm of failing and then doing it again, that's how we learn. So much of the people I talk to, and even myself sometimes, we get so fearful of failure. We get fearful of maybe I'm going to trip and fall on my face. But those times are just as important. I would even think even more so than those times that we succeed. Because especially with Jason and I, we will take success and all of a sudden we'll be like, okay, great, that happened. But failure, we concentrate it so much that we're just like, we like knock ourselves over the head on it. Whereas failure should be kind of the same thing. Okay, that happened. How do I learn from it? Move on. How do you take that failure and turn it into a success, whether it is actual success or successful learning?
They say, so honestly, the easy life, if you seek an easy life, you're going to have a hard life. If you push yourself to have a hard life, you'll have an easy life. And like most times we constantly want the easiest thing forward here. So when something hard comes to us, it's so difficult to comprehend because we're not used to it here. But if you get into the motion here, get up early, push yourself, test yourself, put roadblocks in front of you here. So when things come up that shouldn't be a big deal, they're not a big deal. We have so many things, and it's fun watching kids because they fall down and they're not worried about the world. They're not worried. They're not watching CNBC. They're not here listening here. They're not worried about, their bills, whatever happening. They're just falling down. And that's their biggest moment that's happened to them there. And if you let them think that that's always going to be the biggest moment, that when things come up in their life, it's going to constantly be a difficult area for them to tackle too, because, oh, well, I thought life was easy, right? And your goal with anything you want to do is to understand that don't seek an easy life. I mean, that's pointless, because what would you do if life was just, pristine every day? You wouldn't even enjoy it. You wouldn't even appreciate it, because you'd be saying, oh, something else is wrong because it wasn't pristine enough.
So I want to take our conversation back to MTSU, which is really interesting since we're talking about our children. So we're going to go talk to this group of highly intellectual, highly amazing individuals, Go Blue MTSU, and our friend who asked us to do this for her. We asked her, well, what do you need? What do these college students, what do you as a college student needs? And she was like, well, we have a lot of talks about financial literacy and taking the next step. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to blow smoke. There's so much that we can talk to you about real estate. There's so much we can talk to you about how our life has been, but we want to make sure that we are talking into what you and your friends need. So if you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out what is your next steps, and you're looking towards other people, whether or not you're looking towards podcasts like ours, thank you so very much. You're looking towards books, you're looking towards whatever it is. Maybe you have to look internally. Maybe you're already doing something that you can make a career out of. Maybe you're already doing something that you love, but you're telling me, well, I can't. You're telling yourself, well, I can't do that. Whether it's entrepreneurship, starting a business, going to work for someone, getting that 9 to 5, having that stability, whatever it is that completes you, you need to find that for yourself. Having others, leaders in your life, podcasts, mentors, that's great. Going to talks, that's even better. But then you need to make the decision and take the responsibility for yourself and make that next step.
Being young is the greatest time to go out there and experiment, because the cliff for you falling is not that high, right? Because at the same part,
it feels high though, right?
It always feels high, but think about it. Like, do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Do you have all these other parts? Make sure, like, oh, you failed, you got to pay for school tomorrow. Like, all these other stresses on the part. What's the worst thing that happens? You go out there and try and say, I didn't like this. I lost, $1,000. Okay, great. It was a lesson you spent $1,000 for to learn what you don't want to do, and now you're not going to waste the next 10 years thinking about if you should do it, because you just tried it. Yeah. And most of the time, we're so scared to try something that we never get started. And then it takes up our brain space, because our brain's saying, what if I just did this? What if I just did this? What if I just did this? And you go your whole life looking back and having regret because you haven't tried it. But if you just tried it, you would have learned that you suck at it. You shouldn't do it anyway. And then you got that out of your way and said you found your new passion, right? But most of the points, it's just the effort of trying. Like right now, we were talking the other day, like, I just need to find, like, our goal is for the next foreseeable future for us to find more activities to do, just more experiences, because we've been very busy in our effect of just, the thing with kids is you want to give them everything, but we can't lose sight of our relationship too. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we have, but in certain points, okay, kids work, but there's the time when Pili and I have to have the moment together as well, because kids work, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's got to be that point that we don't ever have a moment where that's all it is, right? And that's our relationship. And that's why we're finding more and more things to do together, because that's important, right? And it could be anything. Like you said, pottery, cool. Archery, cool. Anything.
I actually said working out.
CrossFit.
And CrossFit.
You did. Yeah, you actually did, right? But in the same fact, whatever, right? It can be anything. Something together is better than nothing together.
So how are we growing together as partners? We've grown so much. We've grown our family. We've grown so much as partners. We've grown our business together. And this is for everyone that's listening as well, with your partnerships, with your relationships. We've got to this conversation from husbands and wives all the time. Like, how do you all do it? It's these very key moments when Jason and I look at each other and we're like, wait a minute, we have to, because you just told me this last night. You were like, we need to go start doing something, just us, every week. And this is not, you didn't even call it date night. It was like, we are going to go learn something together every week.
Yeah.
And
we do it like
whatever
every
it is.
3 months, we just need more of it. We
Yes.
just need something more of it. It just need that. Yeah. Right. And I guess the best lesson is that what is yesterday is not today, right? We're always changing, and think our relationship never changes and adapts and does anything different would be silly, right? And so for us, like, things that I tried to happen, like, I don't like when Pili walks behind me, right? And it's like one of those things that for some context, I don't like certain points where, I have to be careful in terms of my talk, because I talk fast, Northeastern, right? And not to wash over her and not give her talk because she doesn't feel heard. But in the same front too, I have to understand where that limitation is too, because if I feel strongly about a point, I have to stand my ground, right? And that's always that part, is that's a thing with relationships, is that we have to have, just gets back to barometer, right? I have my idea, my path forward. Pili comes in there and be like, wait, did you think about this? Yes. Okay, good. Did you not? No, I didn't. Okay, well, let's go think about that and see if it's still the right path forward, right? And there has to be that barometer going back and forth, because in most parts, there may be one driving partner who says, this is the way, and maybe it is, but there's a 70% chance it's not. And then all of a sudden, by the person there, that becomes that resentment, because the other person says, I knew that wasn't a way, but I didn't want to say something to you because I didn't want to step on your toes. And then you get into this big hole and say, well, that wasn't a way. And now there's tension, there's conflict, because one knew it, but was too worried or scared to step up and say it.
That is definitely a dynamic that could happen between us, because I have my ideas, I have those moments, and sometimes they surprise you when I'm just like, we have to do it this way. And then you jump in and you're like, okay, let's look at it and then let's go. Whereas you're like, we're going and we're making it happen. And I jump in and I'm just like, okay, I kind of like tug on you a little bit. I'm like, what about this? And sometimes you've already thought about it, but you haven't caught me up. So a lot of it, again, it comes down to communication, right? That is the main idea between everything, having this open communication. And when you're on a go path, I was about to say war path, but let's call it a go path. I have to remember to give you your space to go, if that makes sense, because that is what you want to do. But I also have to remember that I need to speak up whenever you are on this go path. And I'm just like, okay, maybe not that. Let's try this. And I have to say it in very concise terms, because I am comparatively, I'm very artsy. I'm very kind of free thinking. And it takes me a while to get there and to explain, because my mind is already thinking about other ways to go. And I have to bring it into a concise moment, right? And when I get to that concise moment and I share it with you, sometimes it's like all of a sudden, our lives have gone in it's like when that magic happens, and it happens often for us. But those are those times when we're really listening to each other and we take the steps forward together. Well, period. We take the steps forward together. It's not you going and waiting for me to catch up, which you absolutely hate. But sometimes I just need to kind of saunter and look at the trees.
There's, so if we have action and inaction, I'm always going to choose action. But with action, there's also direct and indirect action. And that's usually where we need to make sure we're focusing on, because inaction I constantly see as pointless, because we're thinking about a lot of things and we're not learning from the response. But the action has direct, right? You can take steps to do it, or indirect actions, other parts that are supporting the action that you're learning to. And that's where sometimes we will put our energy here instead of the indirect actions, because they're leading to see if we should take direct action in the approach. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good spot to end.
I think so too. We covered speaking with college students at MTSU. We've covered really
they know, they listen here. So go back there and learn it again, and you can hear it again here. But the part of it is that we covered a lot. And I think this was a fun talk. And we used to do second cup of coffee, which was so much fun. Although we have no cups of coffee here, we have had our second cup of coffee. But that we will do more of this, and we want to hear more topics that you want to talk about. Give us 3 points that we're going to go talk to those students with about how to prepare for life after school.
You're asking me, or are you asking them?
I'm asking you.
You're asking me.
They can't talk.
3 points. Let yourself experiment. dig in when necessary and get rid of those naysayers in your head. That's 3.
I like them. I like them.
And I even touch the financials. So if you want to touch financials,
It's
go
okay
ahead.
not to know where you are. You can always make more money. But if you believe you can't make more money, well, that's right too. All right. So my beautiful wife, Pili.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us over at Multifamily Live. Come back here. Please, if you have any comments, quotes, ideas for more things, especially things that we can share with these amazing college students over at MTSU, comment below. Let us know what you're thinking. So much aloha.